Thank you very much for joining us here on the Nielsen Network. You at it again, Rob Hersov, and I'm sure this is going to make headline news. The last time you famously said that if Nelson Mandela was alive, you wouldn't vote for the ANC, but now you're looking to invest further in the very country that they are governing. So tell me about this latest option to basically take over the regional airports within the Airports Company South Africa.
So Nick Ferguson and I have a number of businesses together. We're great friends. When I came back to South Africa, it was only for 3 years. When Zuma was in charge, I said the country's got 3 years left before it'll be completely destroyed. And my buddy Nick Ferguson, took me for a drive and said, there's this airport, we should take a look at it. And anyway, the rest is history. We bought it. So I blame Nick entirely for getting me to invest heavily back in South Africa. And he's done so we've done together in a number of other businesses. But, I said in my speech 2 days ago at the Business News conference that, my investment thesis has only changed slightly, where I said, it's binary. If the ANC stay in power in 2024, we're doomed. Every investment will get destroyed or wiped out. But if there's a coalition of the good, we make a fortune. So it's not something you can make a sensible bet. You've actually got to just flick a coin and go for it. So on that note, we're making a bid for the regional airports of ACSA, not Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban. And that's what we'd like to do right now.
So Nick, Rob earlier, pre this conversation, told me that you are the brains of this operation. So we're going to put this squarely in your court then, in terms of investing significantly into South Africa at this time when, let's say, the chips are down, and that's putting it politely.
Thanks, Bronnie. If I'm the brains, then Rob's the brawn. So we embarked on this process about 2 years ago with our Cape Winelands Airport. We're looking at building a secondary airport for Cape Town, and going through the planning processes, and through this have uncovered an opportunity in the regional airports in ACSA. We believe that there's untapped value in it, and we believe that it takes a different type of skill to run these regional airports than to run the major hubs of Durban, Cape Town, and Joburg. The regional airports make up less than 10% of the traffic at the moment for Cape Town. For ACSA's traffic, and we believe we can increase that. So
Nick, staying with you on this, the numbers are abysmal. When you look at the last 7 years, zero growth. You've got operating expenses up 51%, employee costs up 85%. The numbers do not make sense. Is this really, you're saying there's an opportunity there because this is down to mismanagement, and it really is just going to take looking at this from a business perspective and managing it appropriately to start bringing money into the fold?
So when you look at certain businesses, there are businesses that are ticking along or being successful. There are businesses that are wiped out, which is like South African Airways, Transnet, Denel, and most of the other state-owned enterprises. They're dead. And then there are businesses that are starting to collapse. And we believe ACSA is in that category. Despite zero growth, the management have looked after themselves very well by increasing their salaries and building big headquarters up in Joburg. It's typical command and control, communist thing. It doesn't work. And so we want to try and save one of the state-owned enterprises from certain ANC destruction. But we're not going to tackle the big international airports. We'll leave those. We want to focus on the regional airports, which are unloved. And you'll see from some of them that they're starting to fall apart, and they're not getting the love, investment, and focus that we'll bring.
So, Brandon, how it works with ACSA, they are under a regulated environment where their income, their net income, is capped based on a fair return. So there's two components to airports. One is aeronautical revenue, which is landing planes, parking planes, processing passengers. And the other side is non-aeronautical revenue. So what happens with ACSA is if they bring in non-aeronautical revenue, like for instance, a distribution center or general aviation or any type of business, all that effectively does is subsidize the aeronautical revenue, and it's a balancing figure. So as one goes up, the other one goes down, and their profits are capped, and for good reason, because they sit as a monopoly, where they were formed in '94, taken out of government, created a private company which is owned by government. So they've essentially just dressed it a different way, but until they're out of this, until there's another network operator like ourselves under our brand RSA.aero, which is there to encapsulate more than airports. So in airports, when I speak to people about airports, they only think about their own personal situation with airports, which is jumping on a plane and flying somewhere. There's much more to it. There's general aviation, there's fixed base operators, there's new methods, drones, cargo,
logistics.
Exactly. So I mean, it is big business. But gentlemen, I mean, I spend a lot of time traveling, not only internationally as you do, I'm sure both of you, but also regionally. I've recently been to Port Elizabeth and East London. And I have to tell you that there is a huge shift in terms of the traffic. And here I'm talking about air traffic. The number of flights dramatically reduced in this post-COVID-19 environment. We've seen Kalula blowing up, British Airways, you name it. Are you betting on the industry coming back strongly, especially because this is, again, a conversation I've had with numerous CEOs and investors, that the landscape in terms of physical, virtual has really shifted, and potentially business travel is never going to come back on stream to the extent that it was in our pre-COVID-19 environment. Who wants to take that?
So I'll take that. So you're talking, it's very hard to benchmark something when you have a global pandemic. So we have to take that out. We have to take that aside and say, how was it before this pandemic, and can it return to those figures afterwards? So before the pandemic, the years leading up to the pandemic, with no excuses, air traffic movements and passengers in those regional airports is down 20%. So the next question is, can it get to where it was? Back in 2014, 15. We're not talking about last year or the year before. You're talking about the years like 2014, where it was their sort of heyday years. ACSA have an acronym for users of these regional airports, and they call it VFR, which is visiting friends and relatives.
Visiting friends and relatives.
Yeah. Now, so practically they've excluded all business out of that, because there's no unless you're doing business with your family, which is nepotism again. So we think that we want to create an airport operator that focuses on airports, that promotes
visiting relatives and friends.
No, experience-orientated travel. Experience-orientated travel. So, take the highlights of the cities that those airports are in and promote that
And people do want direct flights. They like to go Cape Town, Drakensberg, Cape Town, Kruger. They don't want to always have to be pushed through Johannesburg, or international flights being forced through Johannesburg.
That's the other thing. So with COVID, planes are getting smaller, they're getting quieter,
more efficient,
and they're getting people want more direct routes. That's basically where.
So basically, the industry, in your view, from a tourism perspective, from a friends and relatives perspective, from a local experience perspective, is going to come back strongly. let's talk about where this goes from here. You are putting a figure of 2 billion out there. Has Cyril responded?
So we don't even know where to start. The government has no policy. You know, we've had a very good conversation with Frans Belleni, who's the chairman of PIC, and he was very receptive. He said this makes a lot of sense, and the PIC would probably like to stay in. PIC has 20% of ACSA, would like to stay in for 20% of the regional business. So he's
Would you be happy with that, Rob? Would you be happy with the PIC as a partner?
Very much so. Very much so. The PIC at 20%.
So also I went and saw the current, head of ACSA and made a proposal. I was then, asked to go speak to the Department of Transport, which I did. And now we've been
Honourable Minister.
We have spoken to Fikile, but this was the DG for Transport, and we were referred back to ACSA. So now we're going to go back to ACSA and put a formal bid in, and follow all the processes. So it will go out to tender. It won't just be limited to ourselves.
And we're happy to compete.
Transparent process. Exactly. We believe that we have a unique abilities in that, when COVID hit, ACSA offered voluntary retrenchment to a lot of their staff, or in fact to all of their staff, and a lot of them took it, and we've actually picked up some of the best ones.
So we've got Dion Clutie as our CEO, who was the head of Cape Town International, helped develop King Shaka. We've got a AAA team already part of our team, and we're ready to roll. So
just talking about the Winelands Airport that you're running, that's obviously doing incredibly well if you are deciding to beef up your foray into this arena, correct?
Correct.
So Winelands Airport is an old military airport. At the moment, there's light general aviation there in training, but we plan on building a secondary airport for a number of reasons. The diversion aspect. In Cape Town, you live in you're essentially on an island, and you can only fly in or fly out if you want to visit here. We've come across the fact that any planes coming in have to divert to other airports, and there's a big cost, fuel, etc. So yeah.
But airports become very important logistics hubs, all of them.
100%. And of course, we've also got, I know you're not going the business route, but we've got the African Continental Free Trade Area also launching, and hopefully South Africa can still play that gateway to Africa, and regional airports will be very important in that as well. Are you patient enough to play this game with the South African government? And I'm going to put this to both of you. Rob, starting with you. This could take a long time to unfold. So do you have the patience for the long game?
So I believe the national elections are in the first week of May, 2024. That's 20 months from now. We will obviously follow due process between now and then with the current government, but the likelihood is, that it actually have no policy whatsoever. So, hopefully the new coalition government in 2024 will be much more favorable to privatization, public-private partnerships, and something like this will be seen as a superb opportunity for a new government that we'll hopefully have in 2024.
And Nick, have you spoken to Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan?
I haven't personally spoken to.
I think he's got his hands full with the bankruptcy.
He probably has got his hands full. I was just thinking he may be very open to this option. But gentlemen, thank you for sharing this with us on the Nielsen Network. Obviously, we are going to put some momentum behind you, and let's see how we can actually get some action to save the airports company South Africa in private hands, create jobs, create growth in those local economies. Rob Hersov and Nick Ferguson, such a pleasure speaking to you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bron. Okay, thank you.